My brother said, "Don't come. You and your kid just make everything worse." I just nodded and left. That evening I called the property manager and updated the ownership terms. By morning he was standing outside with his bags. At noon my phone rang, it was him. Last year I handed my younger brother the keys to a house. A whole house, and he looked me dead in the eye at his own housewarming party with 15 people sitting at the table behind him, and told me that me and my daughter make everything worse. That we shouldn't have come. That our presence was ruining his night. And you know what's funny? I paid for that house. Gosh. Almost every cent of it. My name is Jolene. I'm 34. I have a 6-year-old daughter named Chloe, and I work in a field I'd rather not talk about publicly, but I'll say this. I earned every single dollar myself and it was never easy. Nobody gave me a start. Nobody co-signed anything. I built what I have from the ground up, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that so you understand what happened next. My brother's name is Dalton. He's 27. And for most of our lives I loved him the way older sisters do. Fiercely, stupidly, without keeping score. When he dropped out of community college I didn't judge him. When he couldn't hold a job for longer than 4 months, I helped with rent. When he met his fiancée Megan and they started talking about wanting a place of their own, I thought, wait, this is my chance to really set him up. So let me ask you something honestly, have you ever done something massive for someone and just known in your gut that it might backfire? Because I had that feeling. I ignored it. I found this little starter home outside of Knoxville. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, needed some cosmetic work but structurally solid. I negotiated the price down, paid almost the entire thing in cash and put together the paperwork so it would be in his name. A real full gift. No strings attached. I even had the porch repainted because Megan once said she liked sage green. Sage green. I remembered that. Keep that detail in mind because it's going to matter later. The housewarming was on a Saturday. I drove 2.5 hours with Chloe in the back seat, coloring in her little book, asking me every 20 minutes if Uncle Dalton would have cake. I told her yes. I told her it was going to be a great day. When we got there, Megan greeted us at the door and she was warm, she always was with me. She hugged Chloe, took the gift bag out of my hands and let us inside. The house looked great. They'd set up a long table in the dining room, there were streamers. A couple of Dalton's friends from his warehouse job were already there. My parents were in the kitchen. It felt like a real celebration. But Dalton, he barely looked at me when I walked in. I noticed it right away, but I told myself I was overthinking. Do you ever do that? Tell yourself you're imagining things just to keep the peace? See, 2 weeks before the housewarming, Dalton had called me asking for $6,000. He said he needed to pay off a personal loan before it went to collections. And for the first time in my life I said no. Not because I didn't have it, but because I'd just given him an entire house. I thought that was more than enough. I told him gently, I said, Dalton, I just put everything I could into getting you this home. I need to keep some cushion for Chloe and me. He hung up without saying goodbye. So at the housewarming, when he wasn't really making eye contact, I figured he was still a little sore about that. Fine. I'll let it go. I sat at the table, I talked with Megan's cousin Bryce. I helped my mom carry dishes out. I cut Chloe's food into small pieces and wiped barbecue sauce off her chin. Normal family stuff. Then about an hour in, Dalton asked me to step outside with him. He said he wanted to show me something on the porch. I thought maybe he wanted to thank me privately away from the group. Wouldn't that have been nice? We stepped outside. He closed the front door behind us. And then his whole face changed. He said, and I'll never forget this, Jolene, honestly, don't come to stuff like this anymore. You and your kid just make everything worse. You always have to be the hero, the big shot, writing checks like you're better than everyone. I didn't ask for your charity, and I don't want you showing up acting like I owe you something. I just stood there. Chloe was inside eating cake with Megan, and my brother was standing on a porch I'd painted sage green for his fiancée, telling me I wasn't welcome. Do you think I cried? Bez, I didn't. Not right then. I felt this weird calm, like my whole body just went quiet. I nodded. I actually nodded. I said, okay Dalton. That's it. I walked back inside, I got Chloe, I told my mom we had to head out early and I left. Nobody stopped me. My dad was sitting right there, saw me grab my purse and my daughter, and he just watched. My mom asked if everything was alright and I said yes, and she accepted that. She didn't push. Nobody pushed. The whole drive home, Chloe asked me why we left before the games started, and I told her Uncle Dalton was tired and needed to rest. She said, he didn't even say bye to me. And that's the part where I cried. Quietly. Sunglasses on. Highway traffic blurring. When I got home, I put Chloe to bed, I sat on my kitchen floor and I called my grandmother. My Nana Ruth. 78 years old, lives in Chattanooga, still gardens every single morning at 5 a.m. She picked up on the second ring even though it was almost midnight because that woman has some kind of sixth sense when her grandkids are hurting. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Baby, the Lord gives us patience, but he didn't say nothing about giving away your house to someone who spits on your porch." Now you might be wondering what I did next. Because if you're thinking I just let this go and moved on, you don't know me yet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table until 4 in the morning, going through every document, every title, every receipt. And by sunrise I had a plan. What happened the next morning changed everything. And honestly, I still don't know if I did the right thing or if I went too far. I'll tell you about it, but first I really want to know what you do. Because I was sitting there with proof that I'd paid for almost that entire house, and my brother had just humiliated me at his own party in a home I gave him. Would you let it go? Or would you do exactly what I did? Because what I did that next morning, let me tell you, nobody saw it coming. Especially not Dalton. So it's Sunday morning. 6 a.m. Chloe's still asleep. I'm sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that I haven't touched because my hands won't stop shaking. Not from fear, from anger. The kind of anger that's so deep it actually makes you calm on the surface. You ever felt that? Where you're so done that you become the most focused version of yourself. I pulled out every piece of paperwork related to that house. The purchase agreement, the closing documents, the receipts from the renovations I'd paid for, the porch repainting. All of it. And here's what I realized when I went through everything carefully. The title transfer to Dalton's name hadn't been fully completed yet. The property was still technically in a trust arrangement I'd set up through my financial advisor, a woman named Constance who I'd been working with for years. The final transfer was supposed to happen the following week. Dalton had the keys, he'd moved in, but legally, that house was still mine. Now, do you think that was an accident? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe some part of me always sensed something like this could happen. Maybe I was just slow with paperwork. Either way, that detail saved me. I called a locksmith at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. You know how hard it is to find a locksmith on a Sunday? I called 4 before I found one. A guy named Phil who charged me double for the weekend rate, and I said fine, I don't care, just get there by noon. I gave him the address in Knoxville and told him I'd meet him there. Then I called Constance, left a voicemail explaining the situation and asked her to pause any further title transfer activity until she heard from me again. Then I called Nana Ruth because I needed someone to watch Chloe while I drove back to Knoxville. Nana didn't even ask why. She just said, "I'll be there in 40 minutes. You want me to bring biscuits for the baby?" That woman. Honestly, if I have any backbone at all, it's because of her. I drove to Knoxville. And let me tell you, that 2.5-hour drive felt like 20 minutes because my brain was running through every possible scenario. What if Dalton was home? What if Megan was there? What if my parents showed up? But here's the thing, I knew Dalton's patterns. Sundays he went to his buddy Travis's place to watch whatever game was on. He'd be gone by 11 and wouldn't come back until evening. Megan usually went with her sister on Sundays to some brunch thing. So I was betting on an empty house. I got there at 11:30. The house was quiet. Dalton's truck was gone. Megan's car, gone. Phil the locksmith was already sitting in his van in the driveway eating a sandwich. Good man Phil. Very punctual. He changed every lock on that house in under 2 hours. Front door, back door, the side garage entry. New deadbolts, new keys. He handed me 3 sets and I paid him in cash. He didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. Now while Phil was working, I walked through the house one more time. And you want to know what got me? It wasn't the furniture I'd helped them pick out. It wasn't the new appliances I'd bought as a separate housewarming gift. It was a framed photo on the hallway wall. Me and Dalton, maybe 8 and 15, at Nana Ruth's house, sitting on her porch eating watermelon. Both of us grinning, juice all over our faces. He'd actually framed that and hung it up. And for about 30 seconds I almost called Phil and told him to stop. I almost put the old locks back. Because that photo reminded me of who Dalton used to be. My little brother who used to follow me around the yard, who used to ask me to check his closet for monsters, who cried at my high school graduation because he thought it meant I was moving away. But then I remembered what he said on that porch. About me and Chloe making everything worse. And I remembered that my 6-year-old asked me why her uncle didn't say goodbye to her. So I let Phil finish. Can you blame me? Seriously, I'm asking, would you have stopped? I locked up the house with the new keys, got in my car and drove home. I didn't leave a note. I didn't text Dalton. I didn't call my parents. I just left. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because I figured Dalton would notice the locks that evening and call me furious. I was bracing for a screaming phone call around 8 or 9 p.m. But that's not what happened. He didn't come home Sunday night. Turns out he crashed at Travis's place after drinking too much. So he didn't find out about the locks until Monday morning. And the way I know this is because at 7:15 a.m. on Monday my phone absolutely exploded. First it was Dalton. 6 missed calls in 10 minutes. Then a string of texts that I won't repeat because some of the language was just Yeah. Then my mom called. Then my dad called. Then Dalton again. I let them all go to voicemail. The first voicemail from Dalton was pure rage. Screaming, swearing, saying I was crazy, saying he was going to call the police. The second one was slightly less loud but just as mean. The third one, and this is the one that really twisted the knife, he said, "You're just like Dad always said. You think money makes you better than everyone. You're nothing." My dad said that about me? That was news. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'd always known but never heard it out loud. My mom's voicemail was calmer but almost worse in a way. She said, "Jolene, honey, I don't know what's going on, but Dalton is very upset and I think you need to come fix this. He's your brother. I need to come fix this. Not him. Me. The person who bought the house, painted the porch and got told to leave. I need to fix it. Do you see how that works? Because I see it now and I wish I'd seen it sooner." I didn't return any of the calls. Instead, I called Constance and told her to formally halt the title transfer and to send me a written confirmation. She did within the hour. Then I texted Dalton one single message. I still have it memorized. I said, "The house is legally mine. You told me not to come. So I'm not coming. Neither are you. When you're ready to have a respectful conversation, you have my number." He didn't respond. Not directly anyway. What he did was worse. Way worse. And I honestly didn't think my own family was capable of this. 2 days later, Wednesday morning, I got a call from a lawyer. Not Dalton's lawyer. My parents' lawyer. A man named Gerald Whitmore from some firm in Knoxville. He introduced himself very politely and then informed me that he was representing my parents and my brother in a dispute regarding the property, and that they intended to pursue legal action if I did not restore access to the home within 72 hours. My parents hired a lawyer. Hence me. Their daughter. The one who bought the house in the first place. I want you to sit with that for a second because I had to sit with it for about 3 hours before I could form a coherent thought. My own mother and father, who watched me walk out of that housewarming without asking a single question, went and hired an attorney to come after me. I called Nana Ruth. I was crying so hard I could barely talk. She let me get it all out and then she said something I carry with me to this day. She said, "Jolene, some people will eat the meal you cook and then complain you used the wrong plate. You stop cooking for those people. You hear me?" I heard her. But hearing it and doing it are two different things, right? Now I could have panicked. I could have backed down. Gerald Whitmore sounded very official and very serious on that phone. But here's what my family didn't know about me. I don't bluff and I don't fold. I called my own attorney, a woman named Diane Prescott, who I'd used for some business matters before. I explained everything. I sent her every document. And within a day, Diane sent Gerald Whitmore a response that was, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically, "Your clients have no legal standing. The property belongs to my client. The proposed transfer was a gift that was never finalized, and the owner has every right to change her mind. Please advise your clients to cease all contact regarding this matter." You want to know what silence sounds like? It sounds like your family's lawyer not calling back for 5 days. But while the legal side went quiet, the personal side got louder. My mom started texting me every day. Not mean stuff, worse. Guilt. "Your brother is sleeping on our couch. Megan is crying every night. You're tearing this family apart. Your father can't sleep." And through all of this, not once, not a single time, did anyone say, "What Dalton said to you was wrong." Not once. That's the part that broke something inside me. Not the lawyer, not the lock change, not even what Dalton said on the porch. It was the silence around it. The complete refusal by my own family to acknowledge that I was hurt. So I made a decision. And this decision is going to surprise you because it surprised me too. I didn't fight harder. I didn't escalate. I didn't fire back with more lawyers or more anger. I called a therapist. Her name was Dr. Adeline Monroe, and my first session with her was the following Monday. I sat in her office and I told her everything. The housewarming, the locks, the lawyer, my parents, Dalton, Chloe asking why her uncle didn't say goodbye. All of it. And she asked me one question that cracked me open. "Jolene, how long have you been paying for love?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the answer was, my whole life. Every time I helped Dalton with rent, every time I covered my parents' car repair, every time I showed up with gifts and checks and solutions, I was trying to earn something that should have been free. And right there in that office I decided something. I was going to forgive them, all of them, not because they deserved it but because I was tired of carrying it. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it definitely doesn't mean giving the house back. What I decided to do with that house instead? Well, I'll tell you soon. But let me just say, when Dalton found out, he showed up at my door for the first time in weeks. And he wasn't angry. He was crying. But that part of the story? That's where everything changes. And honestly, I still get emotional thinking about it. Stay with me because what happened next is the reason I'm sharing this with you at all. So I'm in Dr. Adeline Monroe's office for my third session, and she says something that completely rewires my thinking. She says, you can release someone from the emotional debt they owe you without handing them back the keys to your life. And it clicked. Forgive, but don't be stupid about it. Because forgiveness and being a doormat are not the same thing. Can we agree on that? So here's what I did. I called Constance and told her to list the house for sale. Not give it back. Not hold it. Sell it. Full market price. I know some of you might think that's cold. But let me ask you, if you bought someone a car and they told you and your child to get lost, would you leave the title in their name? Didn't think so. Constance listed it on a Thursday. By Friday I had 2 showings. Knoxville market was hot, and a 3-bedroom starter at that price? People wanted it. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Dalton had already moved out after the lock change. He was on my parents' couch in Maryville. Megan had gone to stay with her sister Paulette. The house was sitting empty. Sage green porch and all. My mother found out by accident. She drove past the house, saw the realtor sign and called me 17 times. I picked up on the 18th. She didn't yell. My mother doesn't yell. She whispers. Which is worse. She said, Jolene, please tell me that for sale sign is a mistake. I said, it's not a mistake, Mom. She said, you are going to destroy this family. And I said, Mom, I didn't destroy anything. I built something. And then I was told it made everything worse. So I'm letting it go. She hung up. And honestly, that was fine. First time in my life I said exactly what I meant without apologizing. Now here's where things shifted in a way I did not expect. 2 days after the sign went up, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Jolene, this is Megan. I'm using Paulette's phone because Dalton took mine off our shared plan. Can we talk? Just us. Part of me thought it was a trap. But that detail, Dalton took mine off our shared plan, told me she wasn't exactly thriving either. I texted back, coffee. Tomorrow. You pick the place. She chose a diner called Butterfields halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga. Neutral ground. Smart girl. When she walked in she looked different. Thinner. Tired. She sat down and the first thing she said was, I'm sorry. I heard what Dalton said to you through the door. I should have come outside and I didn't and I've been sick about it ever since. I said, why didn't you? She said, because when he gets like that, not physical, never physical, but that cold shutdown thing? I froze. I believed her. Because I know that cold thing. Dalton learned it from our father and it's this family inheritance nobody asked for. The ability to turn off love like a faucet. Then Megan told me things that rearranged the whole picture. The $6,000 Dalton asked me for? Not a personal loan. Gambling debt. Online sports betting. He'd been spiraling for months and when I said no, it confirmed what he already believed. That I thought I was above him. And then she told me something about my parents that I wish I didn't know. She said my father had been telling Dalton for years that my success was just luck. And that I thought I was too good for this family. Casually. At dinner. And my mom never once corrected him. Can you imagine? Finding out the people who raised you narrate your success is something shameful? But Megan said one thing that really broke me open. She said, Chloe talks about you like you're a superhero. Every time we babysat she told us stories about her mom. Dalton knows that. And I think part of him is jealous. Not of your money but that you figured out how to love somebody without conditions. He never learned how. I cried right there in the booth. Coffee cold. Pie untouched. This woman was the first person in my family to look me in the eye and say what happened to me wasn't okay. After that, Megan started quietly working on Dalton. Not nagging, just asking simple questions. Do you miss your sister? Do you think Chloe misses you? He said the first few times he shut down. But slowly cracks started showing. Meanwhile, the house got an offer. Young couple, first-time buyers. I accepted. And signing those papers felt like putting down something I'd been carrying way too long. The sale closed on a Tuesday. That evening my phone rang. Phone. I almost didn't answer. My thumb hovered for 10 full seconds. But I picked up. He was crying. Real crying. He said, Jolene, I messed up so bad. Sorry isn't big enough for what I did. Megan had shown him a folder on her phone. Every receipt, every transfer, every payment I'd ever made for him. Rent, groceries, car repairs, his first apartment deposit and the house. She'd added it all up. And when he saw the total he said he felt physically sick. He said, you've given me more than anyone and I told you to leave. What kind of person does that? And I said, a person who's hurting and didn't know how to ask for help. I don't know where that came from. But I meant it. I wasn't excusing him. I was acknowledging that hurt people hurt people. He asked to see me. I said not yet. He said okay. Then he said, can you tell Chloe that Uncle Dalton is sorry he didn't say goodbye? That's when I knew he was actually changing. Because he remembered what mattered. Over the next few weeks, Dalton checked into a counseling program for the gambling. Twice a week actually doing the work. My parents were harder. My dad didn't call, didn't acknowledge anything. My mom sent one text, "I hope you're happy now." Yeah. That stung. But Nana Ruth told me, "Your daddy's pride is like a cast iron skillet. Takes a long time to heat up and a long time to cool down. But it does cool down." Then about 2 months after the sale, I got a handwritten letter from my father. Half a page. Shaky handwriting. He said he'd been wrong. That he'd spent years making my success into something ugly because he was ashamed of his own failures. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, but he wanted me to know. He signed it, "Your father who should have done better. Warren." I sobbed. Not sad tears. Relief. Like a pressure valve releasing after 34 years. 3 weeks later, Megan organized a dinner at Nana Ruth's house. No party, no event. Just family. Nana made her biscuits and gravy, which she only makes for what she calls serious occasions. Dalton was already there when I walked in with Chloe. He was in the kitchen drying dishes like he was 17 again. He looked at me and his chin started trembling and he said, "Hey Joe." That's what he called me when we were kids. Chloe ran to him. He picked her up and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye, Chloe Bug. I'm never gonna do that again." My dad sat at the end of the table quiet. But at one point he reached over and squeezed my hand. Just once. From a man like Warren, that was a whole speech. My mom pulled me aside after dinner and said, "I should have asked you what happened at that housewarming. I didn't and I'm sorry. Not perfect. Not everything I needed. But a start. And I decided a start was enough. We're not a perfect family. Dalton's still working through his stuff. My dad's still learning to be proud of me out loud. My mom's still figuring out that keeping the peace and keeping things right are not the same thing. But Chloe has her uncle back. Nana Ruth still calls at 9 sharp every night. And that house. The young couple repainted the porch white. A blank slate. Feels exactly right. So that's my story. The ugly parts, the messy parts, and the parts where I could have done better. If you made it this far, thank you, seriously. If you like this story, leave a like, it means more than you know. If you would have done something differently, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if any part of this reminded you of your own family, just know you're not alone. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Feline.